it's amazing. And I'm like, really? And we got there the first night. He's like, dude, just grab her. I'm like, just grab her? She's Japanese. Like, wait, grab her. So I'm just like, and I pull her in. And she kind of like laughs and giggles. And all you have to say to kind of like take the pressure off is just yell Pikachu or Pokemon or Tamagotchi or something. So that was when I opened. I'm like, Pikachu, 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 like that. So, and we actually have a picture of this. So I'm like holding these 3 girls. And it's like you still see into my nice phase because I didn't realize how far I could get away. And then fast forward like 2 days, I'm romping through the streets just like grabbing girls. And my open's like head on.
Lovely. I mean, apart from the obvious racism, this guy is, well, we'll talk about this guy in a few moments. He is self-styled American dating guru, Julien Blanc. Quite the guy. He advises his audiences to treat women with disrespect, contempt, even recommending a choking technique. Ring any bells? He's also suggested pick-up methods including threatening to commit suicide, injuring pets, isolating women from friends and family, treating them, quote, like servants. He's been thrown out of Australia. There's a petition to keep him out of the UK, and now his appearances, at least, have been cancelled in Canada. Sun News' Anthony Fury joins us to discuss. You're a libertarian. First question, should he be banned?
Sure.
Yeah?
That's not a hard and firm yes, but I think sure is definitely the answer. Why? Because there's a large petition. A lot of Canadians seem to not want this guy here. And sure, I believe that the government doesn't have the right to tell anyone what they can say. If they want to put on a seminar in which they're saying unsavory ideas and they're not violating anyone's liberties, then I think they should be allowed to do that. But you do not have the right to just enter countries. I'm not an advocate of zero borders, and we get to decide who comes into our country. We should be able to decide who leaves our country if they're not our citizens. I've always been an advocate of that in all immigration policies, and I think it extends here. There's a lot of people saying, this guy's a jerk. Well, the law does not state all jerks must enter Canada.
I mean, he's a jerk and many other things. He is, though, calling for, he recommends a throttling technique, believe it or not. I mean, I know this, particularly in the context of what has happened in the past few weeks. This is incredible. That's illegal. So if he's suggesting the law should be broken, I think there are grounds to ban him.
Yeah.
But I tend to think, let him come in, all his concerts, appearances cancelled, he loses money, he's treated with complete contempt, and off he goes. I mean, just leave it at that.
Well, and I do think the best answer to bad ideas is better ideas and ideas fighting back. And the bigger challenge, Michael, I don't think is that this guy is coming here, wants to come here, that his company's teaching classes here. The problem is that there's clearly an appetite for these sort of classes here. So we have a problem in our culture. We have a problem with young men in Canada and their lack of respect for women.
Let's talk about that, because one thing for a guy or several guys to have these absurd ideas, he charges serious money. It's thousands of dollars sometimes for the complete weekend course. And they go along with, who are these guys? And it's one thing, hey, men may be lonely or they're uncomfortable, they don't know how to approach women. Okay, there are lots of people who say this is how you do this. But he is saying use violence, threaten violence, intimidate, make them feel isolated, unloved, lonely, and then go in there. I mean, at one point he talks about experimenting with ugly fat girls and then doing the real thing with girls they find attractive. And there are lots, not a few, there are lots of guys who want to go along and learn these techniques.
I mean, what's going on in our culture right now? You and I have talked a lot about homegrown terrorism and religious issues in relation to terror. And I've never really brought this up before, but I've always felt there's a major connection between deeply rooted sexual repression, psychological angles there. And I think the angry young man, whatever culture, background, religion he is, when you get that sexual turmoil in there, a lot of danger for our culture. And people really need to have the right mentors, the right role models to not make this stuff percolate in a negative way. I mean, why is this guy teaching them how to talk to women rather than some older gentleman figure who they can look up to teach them how to be a gentleman, how to be polite, how to compliment people, how to get people to like you for you being a nice and sweet guy and having a sincere relationship that isn't based on manipulation. I think there's a major cultural deficit going on here that there is an appetite for this. It's callous, and I'm not too sure what the answer here is.
I'm not either, because he's not some fringe figure who's a bit of a joke or a self-mockery. He makes money. The reason he can fly to Australia or to Canada or the UK is because he's done very well. Russell Brand, who I think is the most absurd caricature, but Russell Brand is big. There are photographs of them together with their arms around each other. apparently he's respected by quite a few people. We're going to show a clip of him in a club, and he seems to be obsessed with grabbing girls, and I don't know, I tend to think he's hiding something very deep about his inadequacies. But let's have a look at that clip now, please. But here's the other aspect of this. The women involved seem to be in agreement. I mean, they're not resisting. They're thinking it's funny.
Yeah, because I think it's this sort of momentary, surprising thing of a guy goofing around. I mean, let's be clear. That sort of antics that you're seeing in the club, that sort of stuff is happening in all sorts of clubs all across the Western world and probably the whole world. Young people going up, grabbing each other, and so forth. The problem is this guy is not a first-year university student where they're first experimenting. This guy is getting on in years, and he's teaching classes to other guys who are not. I don't think they're 18 years old. I think they're later on in their 20s.
Yeah.
And they're looking to more solidify themselves as people who are doing this all the time, as just the daily affairs of their social life. And I think that's where the danger gets, when it's not just some young guys horsing around and, copping a feel when they shouldn't at the club, which you shouldn't do that, but that's in the culture. That's happening all the time. No, they're codifying it, and they're deciding this is what full adult maleness should be. And that's the danger for our culture. There's a lack of maturity in this.
You're right about the age group. If you look at the audiences, there's a certain, it's almost clone-like of the guys who are there.
Right.
But first of all, they have the money, and if it's a couple of grand, they're earning. And they seem to me to be people in their late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're young professionals who are angry that they never got their opportunity to be a jerk on the club scene when they were 19 years old, and now they want their chance at it. And he's saying, well, the best way to do it is to prey on the vulnerable and the insecure. Again, that should be the age in your life where you're looking to find a soulmate, a long-term companion, and a respectful relationship.
I thought all this was, if ever, was very much in the past, but apparently even really awful, dark things, they stay with us like, I suppose filth does, really.
Yeah.
Sort of a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.